Good evening, I'm Mike Marzo with a recap of what was day 3 in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. Once again, the prosecution's star witness, Cassie Ventura, was on the stand, and her testimony was both graphic and disturbing. She told jurors that Combs raped her in 2018 after they had broken up. She testified that he physically abused her and threatened some of her boyfriends, including rapper Kid Cudi, and that he blackmailed her by threatening to release explicit sexual videos that could have damaged her career. As for Combs, who has pleaded not guilty and maintains his innocence, when Ventura finished her direct testimony, he turned to his family members assembled in the spectators gallery and mouthed to them, "I'm okay." What a day. We'll be joined by ABC News legal analyst Shauna Lloyd, who is inside the courtroom. We're going to talk to her in just a moment, but first up with a recap of what happened today. Here's Eyewitness News reporter Kimberly Richardson.
Today inside federal court in Lower Manhattan, Cassie Ventura told jurors during her more than decade-long relationship with Sean Combs, she felt, quote, scared, trapped, like how do you get out of this situation? The prosecution's star witness revealed the names of 13 male escorts she says Combs instructed her to hire for so-called freak-offs, sex and drug-filled encounters that sometimes lasted as long as 4 days. Ventura maintained she wanted no part but did so because she feared Combs' violent reaction if she opted out. The jury saw this text message, Ventura telling Combs, quote, "Nothing good comes out of FOs, freak-offs, anymore. You treat me like you're Ike Turner."
They're naming names. They talked about the driver giving her drugs, and they're doing the sex trafficking because they're talking about the hitting. It's force, fraud, and coercion.
This afternoon at first, the judge ordered all monitors in the courtroom and overflow rooms be turned off, so only jurors, attorneys, Ventura, and Combs could see 7 images. Ventura testified the images were from videos of freak-offs showing herself with an escort, another one of her alone with oil on her skin, standing next to a bed, yet another, she said, of a woman who once worked for Combs. Ventura says the weekly encounters took a toll on her health. At times, she said, even prescription meds couldn't treat frequent infections. Ventura told jurors Combs repeatedly threatened to release the sexually explicit videos and embarrass her. Still, she said she loved him and sent this text to the father of 7, quote, "I can't wait to have a baby with you one day. Happy Father's Day."
The defense is going to try to say that this was all consensual, and they're going to say, why did you go back? They're going to say, why did you send this text? Why did you say I love you? So they're going to really make it try to seem like she had more control than she did.
Ventura is now married, expecting her 3rd child. Her husband, Alex Fine, listened as his wife described one of the last times she says she saw Combs in 2018 when she said Combs raped her, telling jurors, quote, "I just remember crying and saying no, but it was very fast. I don't know if he noticed."
Our thanks to Kimberly Richardson for that recap. We're joined now by ABC News legal analyst Shauna Lloyd. Shauna, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
You were inside the courtroom today. Take us inside because it was one of the more dramatic days. And, this is day 3, but I mean, it seems like we're ramping up every day. Today was the day the jurors were shown screenshots of these sexual encounters that Cassie Ventura says Diddy described as freak-offs. What was it like in that moment when that was happening and when the decision was made that only the jury and Diddy himself were going to be able to see these images?
Absolutely. So first we have to think about what happened and why we're not seeing the full video. And the judge decided that these women had been threatened with these videos before. And so in order not to re-victimize them, they were not going to show the entire videos, which is why the jury was looking at the stills. Now, the stills were used for identification purposes to identify Cassie there and others. But when it came on, everyone was at rapt attention. Everyone was looking at their screen. You know, you could see some of the jurors had confusion on their face. Some of them were almost like, I almost don't want to look, because I think just hearing the violence, hearing what was happening, it's been so graphic in the courtroom that a lot of them were a little bit reluctant, but they dug in and you saw them really pay attention to what was being shown.
What was Mr. Combs doing?
Mr. Combs was pretty much staring ahead. He looked at the jury for the most part. At the end, he acknowledged his family at different points. During the break, he also spoke to his publicist, who was seated there as well.
How does that play when you talk about the 2016 video of the assault that happened in 2016 in that LA hallway in that hotel? Diddy assaulting Cassie Ventura. That's been admitted by all sides here. how do you have that, and now you have these images with these sexual encounters? How does that play with the jury so early in this case that we expect this trial to last for several more weeks?
Absolutely. I mean, we know that this is definitely domestic violence. Both sides have admitted it, and they have acknowledged it to the jury. Now, when we look at that video, we're not looking at the domestic violence aspect of it, but we are looking at the violence because, let's remember, the trafficking charge means that she was being moved from place to place for these commercial sex activities, and it was under threat of violence or coercion. So when we look at what was it that made her do it, that threat is of physical violence. And so we see what happens and why she felt so threatened and why it was she didn't fight back or say, I don't want to do these things, even though she didn't want to do it.
Part of the pattern of violence also introduced another well-known name to this case, rapper Kid Cudi. And it was 2011 when Cassie Ventura was dating Kid Cudi, and she says that Diddy found out through looking through some emails and threatened to blow up his car. What happened, and how did that play inside that courtroom?
So apparently, according to her testimony, he was able to get her phone during one of these freak-offs. He saw emails regarding her items, her toiletry items being at his home. So he then organized a dinner where they sat down and discussed it. He threatened to blow up the car. He threatened that he would not be in the country when it happened, according to her testimony. So what we see here, and her testimony was so important because what she said was, I felt like I had to break it off so we would all be safe, which means that she made the decision based on the idea that both herself and Kid Cudi would be safer if she just agreed with him.
And the prosecution is trying to paint this as a violent man, as a person who is the head of this criminal enterprise. And at one point today, Cassie Ventura described an incident in 2018 after they had broken up. She says that Diddy raped her in her living room. But then she also testified that she had a consensual encounter with him after that. How does the jury place that in the context of what the prosecution is trying to prove?
It's going to be really hard because typically what we would see is after a rape such as what she experienced and describes, someone is not going to go back to that same person and have consensual sex. But this is where the experts come in. They are going to testify that this is not an unusual pattern in domestic violence instances. There are these cyclical cycles of being loved, wanted, and getting the attention that you need, as well as the violence. And so it is all part of the cycle. So that is where the experts going to come in to clarify that for the jury.
Tomorrow, it's the defense attorney's opportunity to question her, and we know that she settled a civil lawsuit against Diddy for $20 million, and that was admitted today. How do defense attorneys approach this? And by the way, Cassie Ventura is pregnant. She's in her third trimester, and so, you know, just with everything that's going on and these horrible stories that she's recounting, she's up there in this state where she's, you know, in front of the jury. And how does that play into what the defense does and how they operate in trying to cross-examine her to poke holes in her stories?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're looking at a vulnerable witness like that, I mean, she is very pregnant. We see she looks like she's due any day now. So when you talk about that, her demeanor, her soft-spoken voice, that a lot of times she's like, I don't even remember. So what you're going to see is what I like to call quiet intensity. I think that they are going to go into this cross-examination and they're going to be looking to get to the information that they want to prove their case in chief. They're going to talk about that settlement. Why were you motivated to go for that route? Why didn't you call the police at any point in time? They're going to be looking at the contradiction between her texts, which are saying, I'd like to have a freak off, versus what she's saying she felt on the inside. So we're going to see all of those things attacked on cross-examination because that is where the reasonable doubt comes in, and that's what they're going to be seeking to introduce for the jury.
And how much of a struggle will it be for the prosecution to go back and remind jurors from their point of view why these things happened?
Well, they are definitely, we're going to see a redirect. We will see them actually reposition her after the cross because we expect this to be about a day and a half of cross estimated right now. They're going to go back in and they're going to refocus on the things that they want you to pay attention to, which is that the abuse started very early on. He had her career in his hands. He told her he would release these tapes. He would embarrass her. They're also going to focus on the abuse because that is what allowed her to acquiesce to his wishes despite not wanting to do these things.
Only have about 20 seconds left, but I'm curious. You've watched Diddy throughout this process. Is this weighing on him? Do you see his change in demeanor as the testimony gets more graphic?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you see a change. By the end of the day, typically, although when he typically gets into court, he's upright and sits, typically by the end of the day, he's a little more slumped. I think the weight of the testimony, the weight of what's at stake here is definitely weighing on him. And you see him very thoughtful. He's very intense when speaking with his attorneys. He's very active in his defense. You see him passing notes and paying attention to everything they're saying.
It's important to point out not only is he facing the potential, which would be essentially life in prison, but also his family's future, because the financial impact of this could be very, very great as well when you're talking about sex trafficking and a criminal enterprise like racketeering.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about the legacy that he's built, it's all in jeopardy right now, and it's a legacy that's been built over 20 years.
Shauna Lloyd back in court tomorrow. We'll see how day 4 plays out. Thanks for your perspective. We appreciate it. So many developments today. Another big day tomorrow. As we mentioned, the defense begins its cross-examination of the prosecution's star witness, Sean Diddy Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Stay with Eyewitness News and ABC7 NY all day. We have a real-time blog with developments from inside that 26th floor courtroom and all the details as they play out in Lower Manhattan.